into that and say to organize the world's product information and make it universally accessible and useful anywhere it needs to go. So our mission is to enable every brand everywhere, and we do that on behalf of the $800 billion food and beverage industry here in the US in order to fuel today's data-driven retail marketplace. Again, that's online, in-store, mobile, and everywhere a company or a consumer may need high-quality, consistent product information. We aim to provide manufacturers control over their content and get the retail community out of the cobbling business. Our structured product content enables us to seamlessly create mobile images as well. And those mobile images are in accordance to the Cambridge spec that we're going to take some time to walk through the history and background and now current state of as we turn this session over to Sam and Ali. It's just one of the features of our brand activation platform. And today, for any of the 100,000 brand products that we have in our platform, we could go back and recreate a mobile image with a minimal amount of work, again, thanks in large part to Sam and Ali's inclusive design toolkit. So with that, we are thrilled to be partnering with Ali and Sam today to bring you this educational session on mobile-ready hero images. Let me just take 1 minute to introduce Ali and Sam so that you can get a little feel for their background. Ali's going to kick off the session, and he leads experience design for Unilever's global e-commerce team. He's worked in e-commerce since 2008, and prior to that, he held roles in category management, shopper marketing, and many other roles for Unilever in both the UK and his home country of South Africa. He partnered with Cambridge University to create a mobile-ready hero image template, which now is open sourced. So everyone in the CPG industry can benefit from the shopper adoption of mobile as their quote-unquote first screen. Ali also measures the quality of Unilever's online brand experience across over 20 countries to ensure Unilever is consistently delivering the best possible brand experience online. You guys will clearly hear from his presentation today that he's super passionate about design as well as photography, and he admittedly describes himself as a bit of a geek that enjoys eye tracking studies, both observing and participating, as well as video interviewing people on how to improve online experiences. And Dr. Sam Waller is a researcher within the Inclusive Design Group at the Engineering Design Center, Cambridge University, working specifically on the iDesign research program. In his first year with the group, Sam produced the Inclusive Design Toolkit, which is now, again, freely available. It's open source, open spec, and is the subject of this webinar session. He's a published author and is active in developing, testing, and launching several other software tools for the Inclusive Design Toolkit. So with that, we're going to turn it over to Ali and kick off the session today.
Hey, thanks, Courtney. Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so I'm just checking I have control of the screen here. I'm just waiting for the arrows to come up. Okay, Pete, it looks like I've got control. Fantastic. Well, a warm welcome from me, Ollie Bradley. It's been a pleasure to be invited on. Courtney, that's some heck of an introduction. I feel like I'm famous after that introduction. Thank you. You really bigged me up, as they say in the UK. So I guess one of the things I wanted to talk about is just how crazy important mobiles have got. Some call smartphones the remote control for your life. And practically our entire lives now are in these highly addictive little devices. And this is the front cover of The Economist back in, could you believe it, February 2015. And here we are in kind of May 2017, 2 years later. And back then, The Economist was predicting by 2020, 80% of adults would have a supercomputer in their pocket. We're going to take a look at that. One of the interesting things is just the exponential growth and adoption of smartphones as the connected device of choice. And if we, there's been a lot of talk about Amazon, a lot of talk about Alexa, and a lot of talk about voice. And all I'll say is I agree completely with Ben here, where he talks about smartphone is still the next big thing. And this just shows shipments of the major brands. Samsung and Apple obviously heading it off in terms of the two biggest brands in smartphone shipments. But 430 million smartphones were shipped in Q4 2016. 1.5 billion smartphones were shipped in 2016. And actually, if you look at it, the trajectory, there will be 6 million smartphones by 2020, and there are 2.5 billion smartphones in use currently right now across the world. It is the single most important connected device that we have, and has superseded laptops in terms of connecting to the internet and doing things on the internet. And we'll talk a little bit about that and the implications that it's got for us as the CPG industry. This is a chart that's US specific, and already in 2017, 81% of the US own a smartphone. In fact, Keith Weed, who's the CMO of Unilever, at a speech a couple of months back said that 80% of New York's homeless have a smartphone. I'm not sure where he got that stat from, but it sounds like something that's pretty memorable. So he must have researched it. Quite amusing, however. But it's kind of well documented that the Economist's prediction of 80% by 2020 has already been superseded. It's more like 90% by 2020 of adults will have a smartphone. The reason for that is, and you would have seen it in the States, is you can get smartphones for $50. Yes, they might be subsidized on Amazon with advertising on the smartphone itself or built into the smartphone, but the fact is it just puts smartphones in reach of the entire population. This is just a quick slide showing what Mary Meeker said at her State of the Internet address in 2015, and it basically captures that mobile is now taking more screen minutes than people watching TV. And I've heard a lot of people say, but Ollie, seriously, and this is particular retailers say to me, mobile's not important because desktop and PC purchases still represent the majority of online shopping transactions. So back in your box, boy, and it's going to stay like that. And I'm like, well, it's not going to stay like that because in honesty, everybody has a smartphone and they want to use their smartphone to shop. And look what's happening. So this is some data from Criterio. This is a year old. I haven't managed to get new data from them yet. And you can see already, although traffic is mobile first, we're now starting to see transactions trend to mobile first. And I'm absolutely sure that each of these graphs here would have shifted by at least 10% forward in the year, which so US will hit tipping point this year as the UK hit the tipping point last year in terms of transactions went mobile first. Certainly Amazon UK declared that 70% of their transactions already go through mobile, and Ocado in the UK put into their public statement to shareholders that 60% of their transactions in the UK go through mobile. So I can only see that this will accelerate as smartphones become more affordable and used by everybody. So I think we need to deliver a great experience, but the kind of change in mindset is that we need to start with mobile rather than desktop. We also need to think about delivering a great experience on all screen sizes, because most of your shoppers in the States are a multi-device family. They will have tablets, they will have smartphones, and they will have laptops. The research that I've seen shows that a mobile phone is the most predominant device being used to multi-screen in front of the TV in the evening, not the laptop and not the tablet. 50% of people multi-screening in the evening in the US will use a smartphone rather than a laptop to multi-screen. So we need to start with mobile rather than start with laptop when we design our e-commerce experience and design our e-commerce content. I wanted to use this example because gone are the years where on maybe a Friday evening you would go to Blockbuster and pick off a DVD from Blockbuster and a Ben & Jerry's. I'm biased, I know, and go home for the evening. That's kind of 10 years ago. These days, what's more likely to happen is you are on a tablet, and particularly for kids on a mobile device, because some of them don't necessarily have tablets, but a lot of them have got smartphones. They'll be looking through Amazon Video or iTunes or Netflix. And it's interesting to see how the album artwork has changed and become essentially a mobile-ready hero image, and they've just taken out the most simplest, clearest, famous character from their films. These are Pixar films, of which I'm a big fan, and made that central rather than the complicated, cluttered, and quite difficult to see stuff that doesn't really work digital. So that I'm just think this is a great illustration of how design has to change and become digital first and mobile first. So in terms of designing mobile first, yes, screens are getting bigger, and that is actually accelerating the way people use their mobiles for everything. But I will say is that we need to design for screens that are smaller than 5 inches, because still 80% of mobile traffic is on screens smaller than 5 inches. So therefore thinking, hey, a lot of people are going to have massive 6-inch phones like the Galaxy Note 7 was before they started exploding, is just is not going to happen. We need to design effectively for 5.5 inches and smaller at the most in terms of our assumption. And that's not a lot of space. That basically leaves you with about 16 millimeters space on a mobile device to effectively convey your visual information. And Sam will talk about why an inclusive design approach is super important when you are working with those kind of constraints. So hopefully I've kind of piqued your interest. And I think the central question that many of the retailers ask me is, do we really need better e-commerce primary images? And my kind of first answer is absolutely, because mobile is now the first screen. And the smartphone is the first device where people research online and purchase anywhere. People are researching on their smartphones in store. They're researching on Amazon standing in Walmart or Target. It's not behavior that's going to go away. And the reason they're doing that is because they want to look at ratings or reviews and pricing and check that they're getting the best deal. The second thing I'll say is online shopping is mainstreamed, and your eyes, as you get older, basically become worse and are unable to obviously focus on things that are far away or close and make their adjustments. You either become short-sighted or long-sighted, but usually your eyes become one or the other. So as a result, multi-screening in the evenings, which is what everybody does, becomes more and more difficult. And ultimately, online shopping used to be for young people, but everybody's doing it now. So we have to design for the lowest common denominator for the 40-somethings, with people with not great eyesight. And that's why we needed to work with Cambridge on an inclusive design approach. The other thing that we've learned is that online eye tracking has demonstrated a couple of things for us. The first thing is, and if you look at the fixations and saccades here, is that shoppers prefer to only look at images. It's quicker and easier, and people avoid reading. I'm not saying they don't read. They do read online, but they tend to avoid reading and try and identify what they want to buy through looking at images. And the reason they do that is because your brain is able to process visuals 60,000 times faster than it is able to read text. And it's the reason why road signs use iconography and simple illustrations of kind of a man digging a road instead of writing the roadworks on a sign. Because at zero glance, when you're driving, your brain needs to be able to process really quickly what the kind of traffic sign is saying to you. So people avoid reading, they visually scan images, and actually they largely ignore everything else when they're shopping. And the other thing that we noticed from eye tracking is, man, because of the way smartphones and tablets work, they can vertically scroll very fast with their finger, much faster than you'd ever be able to scroll on a laptop, because you don't necessarily get the same sense of kind of momentum of being able to spin the screen upwards, and they do it. So therefore, the consideration time that your image has to make an impression in is compressed. So not only do you have a smaller image, but you have a smaller image spinning past your eye on the center of the screen even faster than it ever would on laptop. So as a design constraint, it's quite enormous. And that's why we also went to Cambridge for help to overcome some of these challenges. And Sam will explain this in better detail. The other thing we work to understand is, aside from price, because everybody knows price is important, what 4 things do shoppers need to know to successfully choose the right product? And surprising actually when you ask retailers this, because not many of them are able to give you all four. And what we would say is it's the simplest four things. Firstly, they need to understand what brand they're looking at. And in this case, obviously, this is the largest ice cream brand in the world by value, Magnum, and being able to see the M very clearly, no matter what the screen size and device that you're on, and go, hey, that's Magnum I'm looking at. And then format is then being able to recognize that that kind of white pack with the gold bird on it actually contains Dove bars and is not a pack that contains Dove body wash or something else. Thirdly is being able to identify your variant. Now, people shop by color and shape, and they'll be able to recognize the pink of the pomegranate and know that they buy the pink Dove one. And that's why we've made it really easy for people to be able to see the pomegranate, and the vertical strip helps navigate the colorway of, hey, this is the pink Dove that you were looking for, because we know people don't remember the word revive. And then lastly, size. We share bottle shapes, and we obviously trademark and patent our bottle shapes. And for Axe, across the world, it's called Lynx in the UK. We have the same bottle shapes. It doesn't matter whether it's the 400 ml or the 250 ml. When you reduce it to a thumbnail and somebody's shopping online, they look identical. So we've solved that with mobile ready here images by putting the size in the bottom right corner, so it's really easy for people to see what's going on. We were pleased to see L2 call us out, and some of you might be subscribed to the crazy videos that Scott Galloway puts onto YouTube every week, and they've just recently published their commerce update, and we were pleased to see that we got called out for our work on Dove Bar, effectively making it a lot simpler for people to shop. And ironically, we've been more successful in getting our mobile ready hero images live with retailers than we have in terms of putting them on our own brand.com. And that's a story I can tell you another time about. So the three pillars in terms of the way we've worked to create mobile ready hero images. So it's not been a case of trying to design banners and try and get standout. There's been some real science and kind of restraint in thinking shopper first about this. The first is visual science, and actually pairing up with the University of Cambridge to take an engineering, rigorous scientific approach and create a test for us, which Sam will explain in detail in terms of helping people see the four most important things: brand, format, variant, and size. The second is we've done a huge piece of quantitative research, which was actually done in the USA with an agency called Skim. It was done on 3,000 shoppers on Amazon's platform and also on Amazon mobile web. And we got uplifts of anything from 4% to 48% in the quantitative research that we did with Skim. We've also done eye tracking on all devices and screen sizes with over 100 shoppers with Toby. And then lastly, we've been working with GS1 and having regular conversations with the team at Google, as well as taking feedback from retailers on what is an acceptable mobile ready hero image. Now, obviously, all retailers will say something different, but all retailers were very consistent in one thing. They want visual consistency and clear rules. So they don't want brand-led typefaces and something different. So they want a consistent experience across their websites. And that's why we've come up with a global standard, not just a local standard that's going to work in the US, but a standard that we're already live with across 50 retailers across nearly 30 markets. And that's also why we've been working with GS1, who endorse our standards in the work with Cambridge. So very quickly, what is an inclusive design audit? These are some of the things that Sam Waller would probably make you wear, which is kind of a pair of cardboard glasses which simulate acuity and contrast loss. And they do a little visual test, usually using the distance method. And in the test, they're able to work out basically exclusion. In this case, inclusion in terms of can 75% of UK adults recognize brand, determine what the format is, recognize which variant this product is, and can read the size or pack count. Now on the mobile ready here image, which is live in all UK retailers with the exception of Boots Walgreens, this pack has fantastic delivery of brand format, variant and size. Walgreens Boots in the UK hasn't adopted, and this is how a pack shot performs. And actually, you can see it's much worse, particularly on determining that there's a Dove bar inside this that box. And actually, nobody is able to work out that there's 6 by 100 gram bars from the pack shot at all, as I'm sure you can't from your screens. So I can hear you ask me, Ollie, do they work? I mean, you know, crunch time, you know, visual science, all very good. But actually, I work for a commercial company, and I'm not interested if it's only good for the shopper from a visual acuity point of view. Fair enough. Commercially, will they need to be able to work too? So let's talk through that. So this is some of the results from the skim test. As I mentioned, we got anything from a 4 to a 48% lift. I tend to not talk about the 48% lift because I think some people don't believe me. Certainly in terms of our financials, the minimum that we're seeing is a 4% lift whenever we do hero images. And all I would say to you is I'm sure growth is hard to come by, but it's a useful, simple thing to do in order to drive growth for you and for your retailer. We also did some A/B split tests with retailers. This is the mobile ready hero images for Ben & Jerry's. And we did an A/B split test with a retailer in the UK, and you can see we got a really strong uplift. We've done tests with other retailers as well. This is on Simple, where we got nearly a 20% uplift with the Simple mobile ready hero images. And on Magnum, we had amazing results, stunning 24% lift on Ocean Drive in France. And, you know, you can see if you go to any of the UK retailers, Magnum, Dove Bar, Ben & Jerry's, they're all live. They're all accepted by all the UK retailers. And many of the US retailers like Walmart have this particular pack shot live and are enjoying probably better sales as a result. I haven't actually done an A/B split test with Walmart, but I'm convinced they're going to give similar results to what we got in France. So just going on to what the feedback that retailers asked for us is they wanted visual consistency, which is good for shoppers, it's good for brands and good for retail partners, because if everybody's got different rules and doing different things, it's actually not going to be great. And where we'd kind of done brand-led solutions in the past, they'd failed. So in the end, we realized we needed to actually deliver a category solution and put a category hat on rather than a brand-led hat. And to do that, we came up with a simple solution of where you've got tall, thin products like we have in personal care, the best way to solve it is with medium zoom and standardized strip lozenges. And obviously, Sam will go through all the detail and ins and outs of that, and you'll have the opportunity to ask him questions, I'm sure, too. But very briefly, I'll mention that was our starting point for solving. And this is my last slide. So I think if you look across the world and you visit different websites, so Carrefour across Europe has accepted hero images. And if you go to Carrefour in Belgium now, you'll see they've got our mobile ready hero images on Dove and all our brands. But the industry is moving mobile first and adopting this approach towards creating zoomed images, simpler images where you can see brand, format, variant, and size at 16 millimeters on mobile. Thank you. I'll now hand over to Sam. Sam, have you got control? And thank you from me.
Right, I think I have control. So Sam Waller here. Thanks to Ollie for the introduction. On this slide, I've got along the top the Unilever hero images that we developed together with Ollie, and along the bottom are imitation being the best form of flattery. We've got some other images from P&G, Kimberly-Clark, and others. And I'm absolutely delighted to be seeing other people adopting our work and really taking it live with retailers. Hoping I'm controlling the screen. Is that going to work? Right. So firstly, though, what's wrong with pack shots? Some people claim packshots are fine because you can read the information in the caption. Anything you can't get from the packshot, you can get from the caption, like the size. The problem is, as Ollie showed, the eye tracking shows people look at the images and then they add to basket. And the other thing we get is people look at product landing pages. And actually, most of the click-through data suggests that people add to basket from the aisle view on e-commerce. They don't tend to look at the detail of the product. You've got hundreds of products to add to basket, limited time, everyone wants to do it as fast as they can. And the result of this is that everyone can tell a story of having accidentally bought something that's the wrong size. They looked at the image, they hit add to basket, they thought it was the size that they wanted, and yet it turned out actually that was one of a different size. So people don't bother to check the text, and it's all about going fast. And with hero images, you can go faster because you can look at the image and it actually works, and then you add to basket. And so that's really what we're designing for. So Ollie showed this demo, and I showed it, and I think even L2 showed it. So we're absolutely delighted with that. And essentially, this is the one that we presented to Walmart many years ago. This was the slide that got Walmart over the line. So if you need to convince anybody about hero images, this is the slide to use to do it. You just put up an image of a tall, thin bottled product at the actual size on a display screen. Now we've got here the $quarter. Obviously, if you might be looking at this on a meeting room or on a laptop or anything, but if the quarter looks roughly like the size that it ought to, then we're in business. And that pack shot that you're looking at is roughly the size you'd see it on a mobile device. And then you very simply just ask the question, can you tell me what the brand is? And in this case, it depends how familiar you are with that brand. So maybe you know that that's a Tresemme. But then you say, is it shampoo or conditioner? And at this point, everyone sort of looks a bit blankly, and you realize, actually, you've got no idea what's in this bottle. Is it Color Revitalize or Keratin Smooth? No idea. And is it the 25 ounce or the 32 ounce? And you realize you've got no idea. And then you replace it with the optimized image, and you say, well, what's the brand? Well, now that's much clearer. Is it shampoo or conditioner? You can see it in the strip down the right-hand side. Is it Color Revitalize or Keratin Smooth? Now, this one's a bit tricky depending on how well you know the colors, but you can see on the product image that there's definitely 3 words there. So hopefully you get that, the Keratin Smooth color one. And the red of the colors of that variant is now more prominent in the strip as well, so you've got more chance of getting it. And 25 or 32 ounce, now absolutely clear. So what is a mobile ready hero image then? This slide shows the 4 different options that we advocate. And you've got full square packs, you've got size only, you've got landscape with stripe, and you've got portrait with stripe. Now, the question we always get is which retailers are taking these images, and different retailers are currently taking different sets of these images. So some of them will take all the images, some of them will just take the S1 full square images. And unfortunately, we have to have a conversation with retailers trying to convince them that not all packs are square. And this, unfortunately, is not a statement of the bleeding obvious to them. So that's the conversations we're having. We are collecting lists of which retailers are taking which images. We will be publishing that on the Inclusive Design Toolkit website, and it's changing over time. We get more retailers coming on board every month, and we get more retailers accepting a wider variety of the images every month. Now, this is just for standard packs. We've also got multi-packs, which adds another bit of difficulty into the mix. We've defined multi-packs as saying it's anything that's got individual items inside it, where the number of items is described on the shelf label. And if you're a multi-pack, that's a very wide-ranging definition of a multi-pack that says bars and multi-packs, for example. But if you've got those, you've got extra options that you can play with because you can pull the item out. And you can also describe using the strip solution both the size of the item and the number of items in the pack. So we've got 4 extra ones there. By and large, I think the retailers are taking all of the multi-pack ones, apart from the last one. So you can see there's a real mix between what solutions we advocate and what retailers are taking, and that it shifts over time. So what is a mobile-ready hero image then? Well, we've shown this Tresemme image at different sizes to really make the point that it's about mobile through to desktop, all the sizes working, one image working on all those different sizes. It's about the primary image and thumbnail results. So for the aisle view, it makes better use of the space because every retailer offers you a square window to display your product in. And Amazon's slightly more portrait, but definitely on a global basis, everyone's pretty much agreed that it's a square. No matter what the product, will give you a square. But of course, most products aren't square. So if you take a photo of a product and put it into a square, it doesn't look as big. And people tell us they think these hero images are cheating because they are bigger than the packshot ones are. But actually, it's using the same window that's available within that the retailers give you, and it's just using that window better. It's on all screen sizes, I've said that. It's about recognizing the 4 things, Ollie said that. Now, you can zoom the representation of the product so that you can better see the brand and the detail. You don't have to see the whole bottle. So we can do zooming. It's not necessarily always a good idea, but it's certainly possible to do it, and it certainly can help in most circumstances for tall bottles. And if necessary, you can add off-pack communications. You don't always have to have off-pack communications. Particularly, we're getting a lot of conversations about these strips that people are saying, oh, we don't need these strips everywhere. And that's entirely true. You don't always need them, but sometimes you really, really do need them. And so if you need it, then you can have a strip. So this one, shampoo and conditioner, definitely does need them. Mayonnaise and the likes doesn't need them. But if necessary, you can have a strip. And if necessary, you can call the size out on the bottom right-hand corner. If that bottle is available in multiple sizes, then it makes sense to do it. So a little bit more detail on the testing that we do for Ollie and various other people as well. We've got an algorithm that's an expert appraisal. We assess the image ourselves, but then we convert that assessment using some population data to make a prediction of the number of people in the country who wouldn't be able to ascertain the critical messages. So we've got the critical messages that Ollie said down the bottom of this graph. The only one that's split out is that we've got both confirm the brand's not an imitation. So for that, we're saying we need to learn the strokes of the brand. And we've also got recognized brand being, if I think it's a dove, do I confirm that it's a dove? So we can see here that our model goes out of range at the top. When it's basically the image is so bad, it goes out of range of our model. And we're finding here that these packshot images are pretty much so bad that every single message is failing and exceeding the range of our model. When you then do the same assessment on the body wash, you see that by and large, everything's got to within our target of less than 25% exclusion or more than 75% inclusion. And that's the target that we set with Ollie to say that's the bar for e-commerce images that we've got to get below. Now, for us as an inclusive design team, that's remarkably generous. We'd normally be talking about sort of 5% exclusion trying to get underneath. But because you've got such a small bit of real estate to play with on a mobile, we thought that was a fair representation of a target for a mobile device. And if you meet that target on the mobile, that means when people are looking at the images on desktop, they'll be even more able to see them. So the people who can't see them on mobile will be able to see them on desktops. Now, the key point that this slide shows really is the impact of social care, because people who are struggling in life won't necessarily be able to make it to the shops. And in fact, being able to do your own shopping is one of the things that the hospital have to tick you off as being able to do before they'll release you from hospital. Now, if we can get more people in the world able to successfully shop on multi-devices as they get older, we can make a real difference to social care costs. And that is a huge advantage of the work that we've been doing. So if we say, well, these images are a good idea, why do we need rules then? Why can't we just do anything we like? And if we look at these images on the top right-hand side, these are some live and some historical images that have been produced during the time. Now we see here on the right ones, gradients going in different directions, which it just looks inconsistent with the 2 gradients going in different directions on the strips. We've got the yellow and red lozenge disaster on Nescafe, and Ollie self-admits that he was the first one to put red text on yellow dots, and then other people followed and realized this was a great way of getting visual standout. Red on yellow, your eye's not going to miss it. And unfortunately, then we had to sort of pull the drawbridge back and try and get all these images taken down because they'd really gone too far with yellow and red Armageddon everywhere. And the comfort one is showing the brand breaking the pack, which looks really visually disruptive. And the suave one showing multiple views, together with the axe one showing multiple views in different ways. So we started off making these images without any rules, and then pretty quickly realized that there was just Armageddon everywhere, and we were going to need to have some rules, because everyone's trying to stand out, everyone's trying to get attention. So wherever a brand team can do something that makes their image stand out, if they can do it, they will do it. But the impact of that on the shopper experience isn't the best. So we've got to have rules for a level playing field, so everyone knows these are the rules that everyone sticks to, and then the shopper experience is maximized and people can do their best to achieve their standout within the allowable rules. So we said, what principles do we need then to make the rules? It's about maximizing visual clarity, maximizing speed of product selection, but it's also being mindful of the scale of the challenge. 20,000 plus groceries images that need to be created. So some solutions are just not possible within the scale, and based on the fact that one image will be supplied to all retailers. Many times we've had retailers going, oh yeah, but for this to supply to our retailer, you'll move this from the top right to the bottom left or whatever. To which our response is, no, we won't. There is one image. You can either take it or you can leave it and go back to having a pack shot. But we have that conversation quite often. So the scope of these recommendations, it's been a journey. We started in personal care, which is essentially saying shelf life is not important and multi-packs are not the dominant bit. So that's all these images on the top. But some multi-packs were in that scope because Magnum was part of the early work that we did, and some of the most successful images that have ever been is the Magnum ones. But other multi-packs started then doing other things like Coke, saying actually we want to pull items out in different ways. So multi-packs are currently on the borderline of being in scope. They're being developed live as we speak, new multi-pack guidelines on the Inclusive Design Toolkit website. So check back there in a month or so and you'll see where we've got to. But we're working on it, and we're working on GS1 with it. Shelf life is an interesting one. We've stayed away from shelf life so far. And the reason for that is because retailers overlay shelf life. And at the moment, retailers don't have the technology to move that overlay depending on the shape of the product. So if you see here, this is an image of Tesco's finest bacon with Tesco's own lozenge completely obliterating their own Tesco finest logo. And I believe Ollie presented this image to the Tesco team a few weeks ago to some degree of silence in the room, that they couldn't believe they were doing that. But they don't have the technology to do anything else at the moment. So essentially we're saying we're not going to go anywhere near shelf life until retailers demonstrate they've got the technology to move it so that it's top right for portrait images like this orange juice and bottom left for landscape images where you need that other position. As soon as retailers have got that technology, we'll be great to join that discussion for how to communicate shelf life. But we're working with GS1 to codify what we've got so far and develop solutions to make progression. So now I'm going to look at the decision tree for hero images. I showed you at the start that there were 4 different types of standard hero images. And it actually took us about 2 years to work out how you tell as a brand team which one of those images is right for me. How do I make that decision? To start with, we thought, well, if you're ice cream, you do one thing. If you're personal care, you do another thing. But then we realized, actually, there is a decision tree that's more general than that. I should also say, this is all about off-pack communications. Retailers will let you do whatever you like with the asset on the actual front of your actual pack that's displayed. They get very, very concerned about any image that's taken off the pack. We call them off-pack in-image communications because they're displayed as part of the image, but they're displayed off the pack. So we're saying you don't have to have off-pack communications, but if you are going to have them, you've got to follow the rules for them. So here's how the questions go. The first question is actually, is the pack squarish? Because if you've got a squarish pack like Dove Bar or Andrex have also been really successful with this, you just show the asset on the pack using the full square of the image. You don't need off-pack communications and they're not helpful. So that's actually all the adoption of the retailers. Everybody loves the square pack. So if you can use the square pack, just go ahead and do it. It's only if you're not a square pack, then we start talking about off-pack communications. And if we're going to talk about those, the question is the type of format or product type obvious from the pack? So if that's a yes, it's like mayonnaise or Pringles crisps. Everyone knows what they are. It doesn't need a strip telling them that it's mayonnaise. You know from that brand and that shape of product, you know what it is. So you only need to call out the size. Unfortunately though, for some products, you don't know what that is. From the brand and the shape of the product alone, you can't tell what's in the bottle. So the next question is, what's the aspect ratio of the pack? Well, if you're landscape, that means that you've got space available underneath the bottom of the image to place additional information, like this simple one here. But if you're portrait, then you've got the spare space within the image on the right-hand side. So you can then use that to display. Now, a lot of retailers have been suggesting that actually they're better at choosing what words should be there to describe the product, and they're better at choosing what the size information should be. But unfortunately, those retailers don't have the technology to move those strips between portrait and landscape products. And that's why we advocate that in the image itself is the best place to do this, because then the brand teams can lay those elements out together with their product to make sure that nothing obscures everything and everything looks like a consistent, harmonious, well-designed image. Now I'm going to look a bit more detail at the anatomy of the image. This was just for one line of the decision tree. And we got some people thought that this was the only image that we do, and all images have strips and they all look like this. That's not the case. This is just one type of the image. And we're saying that it's a medium zoom image in this particular case. But if we look at the way the callouts of pack are described, the color of the stripe is used for the variant, so that people can pull that color out in more detail because people shop by color for the variant. The words that are in the stripe describe the product type, because that's the one that's more difficult to ascertain, and that should be on a category standard basis. So we're not talking about what the product is, like the Radox, they call their things feel fresh and feel awake and all that sort of stuff. This is saying in a retailer world, what's this product name? Is it a conditioner? Is it a shampoo? And not fortifying shampoo or anything else brand-led, but retailer-led in terms of how would they describe the category standard description of the type of product. And then the size is called out as well. So looking at the rationale for the decision tree, we get these questions a lot. You know, what's going on with these? Are the square packs better? And should we have off packs? Should we minimize square packs to a smaller size to allow off-pack communications down the side? And the simple answer is no, square packs don't need off-pack communications, just use the full square. But then we get the next problem, which is people say, well, if you can fix it for Dove Bar, why can't you fix it for everything? And we use the trigger spray bottles as the best example for this. You can see from this photo that the shelf's working really well, that people can tell how the shelf is arranged, they can tell which bottle is which, they can pick the bottles up to work out what's going on. Then you see if you put all those identical looking bottles into online shops, you can't tell anymore what any of them do. But if you add the extra strips, then you've got the chance. People seem to think that you can solve all problems by zooming as well, but the trigger spray is a great example where you can't zoom into the bottom because you'd lose the fact that it's trigger spray, and you can't zoom into the top because you'd lose the brand graphics. So this one's the acid test to show that you can't always zoom, and sometimes you definitely do need these additional stripes. The next question we get, and we get this one probably the most compared to anything, is what's going on with these crazy vertical strips? Why can't people read text that's horizontal? That would be better. The fact of the matter is that if you take these pack shots, again, these trigger sprays, these are own label ones, if you were to accompany them with a horizontal strip, you'd be making the product image smaller. Now, it's hard enough already to work out what the brand is and what's going on with the product. It's even harder if you use a horizontal strip. So it's quite possible to use a horizontal strip and actually make the problem worse. Comparatively, if you take the vertical strip, you're just adding information. You can only make things better. Not only that, we tested both of them. we tested the horizontal strips and we tested the vertical strips within Skim. This was 3,000 shoppers, and we tested every which way around of the different things that it could go. And the result from Skim was it doesn't matter which way around they go, marginal benefit from the vertical, but by and large, they were saying it works either which way around. People are happy to read the text upwards, and that's fine. And so their advice was make the best use of the screen real estate, which is for the vertical strips on vertical products, horizontal strips on landscape products. But not even that, we've got the A/B split test. Simple took the bold move of taking everything off of the pack and only using the vertical strip to describe what the product type is. So you can pretty definitely say that if people didn't like those vertical strips, Simple would have got in an awful lot of trouble for that. And they didn't, they got 20% uplift. So hopefully that's the end of the conversation regarding shouldn't all strips be horizontal. And anyone who gets that can use this slide to say, no, it definitely is best with these vertical strips. Another one about where size belongs, because often retailers say, oh, but for us, you'll put size top right, won't you? And this image shows from Coles, the Australian retailer, where they've one of the most perfect implementations of hero images, showing them across all types of products. But you can see for both portrait and landscape products, the only space that's consistently available is size. Size is the most important piece of information. So size gets the spot that's consistently available across every single product, so that we can teach shoppers size is always bottom right. So I've said all that. Now, it then comes up with retailer overlays, where they then say, but we want to put this thing into the a particular portion of it. I'll discuss retailer overlays later. Now I'm going to move on to some frequently asked questions that we get regarding the general layout. Do hero images work for own label? People think, this is just a Unilever thing. It only works when people know the brands really, really well. Coles, the Australian retailer, had a go at doing it for their own images. And you can see here they haven't followed the guidelines. They were actually one step ahead of the game because this was before the guidelines. But even with those images that they did, they got a 55% uplift, and they put that in the public domain. And they had another test group that got 36% sales uplift. Now, in my life, I've never seen sales uplift scores that high, but even things being on promotion and things, that is sky high. So that pretty much bottoms out anyone who comes back with that argument straight out the park. Now, in all of these slides coming up, I've got details that are grayed out. That's that they're on the slide deck, which will get distributed, but I'm not going to talk through them. So I will just be skipping straight through anything in gray. Can the product image be modified? Yes, there are certain modifications. Yes, you can zoom. Yes, you can crop. Yes, you can remove lids. Yes, you can add key lines, but no crazy glows. That's just a way of getting stand out for its own sake. And yes, you can take details off the pack, but no, you can't add anything that wasn't there to start with. Can graphics break out from the pack? Is a definite no. Can reflections be added? It's a no, that's just visual disruption for its own sake. Can three-quarter views be shown? Now, the Ben & Jerry's does show a slight camera uplift to show the depth of the pack, that's fine. But these other ones, the Lynx and the Dove, are again just showing ways to try and achieve visual disruption. If everyone's flat and you show a 3D view, it's visually disruptive, it draws the eye. But it actually makes the pack harder to distinguish. You can't tell what the brand is, you can't tell what the words on the pack are. And multiple views is another way of getting visual disruption. If everyone's showing one view of the image and you show multiple views, it's visually disruptive, but it doesn't actually help. In the aisle view image, you only need one image. Multiple images is the case for product landing pages, where you then want the multiple images to show every which angle of the product. But in the aisle view, it should just be one. Images with border lines is a straight no. The number of these I've seen live, which was accidental because people put them on PowerPoint slides and then they have border images, is surprising. But just to be absolutely clear, no, they shouldn't. This is a slide on retailer overlays. This one's showing Tesco, where they put their special offers in the top left-hand corner, and you can see it quite nicely obliterating these yogurt brands. They also put shelf life in the top right-hand corner. So you might wonder which bit of the brand is, which bit of the square is left for brand teams to use, and these are ongoing discussions. You can also see in the bottom, Walmart doing it. They put the rollback straight across the Dove logo. And this is actually, I believe the right word is illegal. It's a copyright for the Dove, and that's not allowed to obscure any part of the image. It's been mentioned to retailers many, many times. It's currently like the sort of thorn in their side that they try and ignore and say, oh, it's not that big a deal because it doesn't happen on that many products. But the bottom line is space is limited, so there's no corner that's consistently available for retailers to put their overlays. And retailers need to find other ways of doing this. This image on the top right is my own personal mock-up of how I think the Tesco store could look. I've used background fill manipulation to show which product is on offer. And if you can't tell which product is on offer from that image, you definitely need your eyes tested. Now, the red border is also a big visual standout, and I've put the offer strip in the top right-hand corner rather than the top left. So it is definitely possible. I think I'd be brazen to just say that retailers don't currently have the innovation to be able to do it. They seem to be stuck in a world where they think the only thing they can do is put overlays on top of the images. And I'm fairly adamant they just need better testing, better technology. They need to put their hand in their pocket and pay for better development so that the images are not obscured. And as of course said that about brand legal teams. So what about retailers adding their own size lozenges? This one is Asda making a right mess of it, and this was live on the 18th of January. They've decided that the standard front of pack size lozenge isn't good enough, so they'll make their own, and then they'll stuff it into the image no matter what happens that it might obscure. And we see this time and time again with retailers. It's an ongoing conversation. I believe Tesco have now moved. They finally dropped adding their own size lozenges onto images in the UK. So it is possible for retailers to move. It's an ongoing discussion. And this image on the right shows Amazon doing it as well with their own way that they want to describe size. But our opinion is firm and clear. Size goes in the image. If it's a full square image, the size is integrated. If it's a portrait or landscape, the size is off pack. Retailers overlaying the size is a terrible idea, and it cannot ever be done well. And here's showing what good looks like, with both P&G and Unilever agreeing on the use of the same lozenge in the same position. And the fact that you can get Unilever and P&G to agree about anything is no small miracle. So can anything else be positioned off pack? Well, if it's a multi-item pack, then yes, you can pull the item out of the pack. There's a conversation with Google about this, which is ongoing. More updates on that maybe in a few more months when we've actually managed to bottom out with Google what they will and won't accept. That conversation is ongoing. But from a visual clarity perspective, it's definitely a good idea to pull the image out, and it's definitely a good idea to overlap the image so we can see as Mars are doing. And that's a good idea to make best use of screen real estate. But no putting anything else off pack, no fair trade, no swirls, no glows, no text floating everywhere, no brand assets. You can see from these images on the right the number of different ways over the years that brand teams have tried to get visual standout by putting stuff off pack. Floating text, we started down that road several years ago. We realized as soon as we started talking to the retailers that it just wasn't possible to get a consistent way of displaying off-pack text. So the simple answer came to no. No floating text is allowed off pack. Text must be constrained within these strips if we're having any text off pack. Can the shape of layout be changed to get more visual standout? It's a straight no. Can you make up your own size lozenge? People seem to think hero images is an opportunity to make new ways of describing size. You can see this with the simple image in the bottom right-hand corner, where they've got this new artwork for how to describe the fact that it's 25 wipes. On its own, it's a great idea, but the bottom line is that a 16mm image on a mobile device is not the place to be trying to establish new category iconography. So we say that if it's established on front of pack already and used across the category, then yes, the hero image can and should replicate that, but we shouldn't be placing any new icons that aren't already on front of pack. This is another way of achieving standout, trying to swap round where things go left and right, and the answer is no. It's got to be straight center, and it's got to be in the standard layout. Now moving on to the stripe and size call out, more questions. What words are allowed in the stripe? Now, this is another one that's an ongoing conversation. Google state that shopping feed will only harvest things if the off-pack is a technical text description of the type of product. So shampoo and conditioner is obviously okay. For the Vaseline one, Cocoa Radiance, a definite no. Now, retailers won't take images where brands use their own language to say, oh, this is a bodifying shampoo, or this is a hair maximizer, or any other words they might come up with to describe what the product is. And variants shouldn't be taken off pack because this should be established by color and pack artwork. And the text in the stripe is not an opportunity to be fixing poor artwork on the pack. And you can see here as well with the simple one, this one drove the retailers absolutely berserk. It basically took every image, every word that was in the caption of the image and put that into the image itself, which the retailers said, what's the point? What is the point of taking the caption and just putting it over the image and turning it the other way around? So our proposal is to make a list of allowable words with GS1 on a per category basis. So everybody knows these are all the words that you're allowed to use. Pick the ones that best describe the type of product for your brand. And these will be on a per category basis. The starting point for this is words that are non-trademarked and exist in greater than 5% of the product names in the retailer stores for that category. So if you search for moisturizer, you can look at the keywords that come up from all the text descriptions, and then you can say that, for example, sensitive is a way of describing different types of product for moisturizer. But I think anti-aging, for example, is not. And that's our way of determining what's the difference between a type of product and a variant, because for many products, those lines get very, very blurred, particularly if we're thinking things like low salt and caffeine free. But if we look at some laundry examples, we're saying capsules, you could call that off-pack. Color is allowed, but Febreze is no, that's a trademark. And calling it pods, that would be a no, that's another trademark. This one comes up as to what text colorists use. This is the color contrast analyzer from Vision Australia. It's an excellent tool. You should definitely download it. And what it allows you to do that I've shown here with where the purple circles are, once you've loaded the application up, you can pick the eyedropper tool and then eyedropper any color out of any other application, which could be Photoshop or a website or anything. And it will straight off tell you, pick a background color, pick a foreground color. It'll tell you whether that passes the WCAG accessibility guidelines. Now, the test we're looking for is the AA large text one, which I've also highlighted in purple. And basically we're saying you use white text as the starting point, because that better allows you to pull out the color, have a good strong color to recognize the variant. But if the color for the variant is pale and that white text would fail, then switch to dark gray text. So we've just started fixing these with, I believe, the Coles one in Australia, where we actually supplied to them, here is every image that's currently live, here is every image that currently fails this accessibility test. And I believe they're going ahead and fixing all of those. Can the typeface be changed? Ollie touched on this. No to any other font. Open Sans was chosen because it's neutral yet friendly. And anything that changes that is just attempting to achieve standout for its own sake by using a brand adjusted font or by fiddling with the tracking or the kerning or the font weight or any other which way of doing it. It's a straight no, leave it alone as Open Sans. What about color gradients? They don't add anything towards for visual clarity. They definitely give a bit of standout, but it's really standout for its own sake. And retailers demand category standard consistency. And that is best, and the visual clarity is best when you've got a flat color. And you can see here the problems with gradients is that every brand tries to put their gradients in a different direction, and it just looks visually disruptive and a bit of a mess. Uppercase is another way of trying to get standout, to shout louder, and it's a definite no. The words are clearest when it's what we call sentence case text. So every word is capitalized. That's the way the retailers describe it on their website. If you look at the caption, each individual word starts with a capital letter. And we match that format within the stripe so that it looks consistent. Size units being rotated. This is one that brand teams come up with to try and get cheeky better use of space. They tend to capitalize the units as well while they're at it, but it's a straight no. Units appear in horizontal orientation on every product you'd ever see, so they exist in a horizontal orientation for these images as well. This one's one of my own personal interests. On units, for fluids, fluid ounces is correct. It should be lowercase FLOZ. That should be the exact standard that is used for every retailer description of product. Every e-commerce image should match that standard. I know at the moment it's basically a Wild West free-for-all in the US where people pretty much use either FLOZ or Oz or capitals or lowercase. There is a right answer. Anybody who's an engineer can tell you exactly what the right answer is, and it's FLOZ lowercase. Uppercase is wrong, and for any liquid product, just calling it OZ is quite simply wrong. Unless if the density is exactly the same as water, then you might get away with it. But if it's anything other than the exact density of water, the two are different. And for advertising standards, you've got to show the right thing that's actually what you're offering. And you are not offering 25 ounces of shampoo, you're offering 25 fluid ounces of shampoo. They're not the same, the difference matters. Now, if it's solid, then it is just ounces, in which case lowercase OZ is correct, uppercase is wrong, and putting dots after it is not necessary, and it's taking more space than it needs to. So we say the dots can be quite happily omitted, and it's better without them. So if we've got the correct standard, hopefully everyone can now move towards that, and hopefully GS1 will be working more actively in this area to move it so that the shoppers don't just get confused between competitors where one's offering a size in FLOZ and one's offering it in Oz. Can the width be changed? No. That's another way of trying to trick to get more visual standout, but it doesn't add anything. It's just visual disruption for its own sake. Why do we do the colors like we do? Well, the bottom right-hand bit is showing the brand color, and this makes the images look like parts of a set. So these 4 Dove images look like part of a set, and the 4 Lynx images look part of a set. So that gives you the key as to what the brand is, and then the strip color is picking up the variant, so that it's giving the shoppers more pixel real estate that they can use to determine what the color of that particular product is, because it's just so small. Looking at text, should the text go upwards or downwards? We had this conversation for a while, and then we realized barcodes read upwards. And if text on a bottle text appears on a bottle, that text reads upwards. So we've unified everything to text going upwards. Can the stripe touch the product image? That's a no, straight no, but a key line is sufficient to make it pass. So hopefully with a few minutes to spare, in conclusion, the scope of the recommendations. We've done personal care, we're doing multi-packs, we will do shelf life once retailers can manage to move the shelf life position depending on the aspect ratio of the product. There is a decision tree. It does need to be followed. It's based if you're square or if you're portrait or if you're landscape, you get different types of images and you use a strip only if you absolutely have to. And then here we've got a set of conclusions. You can read through these at your leisure. I think I'll just leave this slide up and hand over back to Courtney.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Sam. We did have a couple of questions come in through the Q&A chat box, so by all means, please do feel free to ask a couple of more questions as we do have some time remaining. And while you guys are gathering sort of your thoughts and questions, I'll direct to Sam and Ollie one really important question that came over around how to convince retailers that they want to move into adopting this as the primary image. The question specifically said, you know, how do we convince retailers who are telling us that the entire category has to be uniform?
It's a great question.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, Courtney, I'll give that a go if that's okay.
Of course.
So a really, really useful question, and I think it's not easy because obviously in many categories it's quite fragmented, so there's a lot of suppliers, and to get everyone to the same place in terms of creating hero images and to be able to provide them to the retailers, not going to happen easily. So there's a couple of thoughts where we've got it right. So in laundry, between us, P&G and Unilever and laundry in the UK, I think probably are 90% of the market. And not that we had a conversation, but they adopted our front of pack lozenge, which talks about the number of washes. It's just a simple wash basket with a number in it. And we gave up the intellectual property rights for that by open sourcing it. And so effectively we handed it to P&G, and we knew that shoppers wanted it. So we started using it first. They fast followed. And if you look on Sainsbury's and if you look on Tesco and you type in washing powder or you type in Ariel or Persil, the two kind of brands that are head on head, you'll see identical treatment with number of washes on Sainsbury's and Tesco. So it can be done. And similarly, kind of, and GS1 has been part of this conversation, working with Nestle, where Unilever and Nestle are, and probably General Mills as well. The three of us are really big in ice cream. General Mills has followed us on Ben & Jerry's with Haagen-Dazs and with both lids off and with kind of Haagen-Dazs in some countries is owned by Nestle and some countries is owned by General Mills. So that's why I'm mentioning them both. And we're quite happy that they follow. And because we have, between the three of us, we're really big in ice cream, we effectively created an industry standard for ice cream. And you'll see really good acceptance of Ben & Jerry's, Magnum and Haagen-Dazs in the UK retailers, and effectively we've got to an industry standard. In hair care, similarly, L'Oreal's followed us. So you've got L'Oreal, Unilever and P&G all using the vertical strips, and Sainsbury's and J&J as well. So we've done it in hair care. It's maybe difficult in other categories and all I can say is the reason we've open sourced is to allow everyone to follow. And ultimately the retailers have the choice of just medium zooming a pack shot and adding the lozenges, which is not difficult and not expensive, and fast following. So it's really down to the retailers, and using it in their own label would be my challenge back to the retailers. And the retailers that don't want to do mobile ready stuff, mobile commerce is growing more than 3 times faster than e-commerce, and I think that'd be crazy to ignore shoppers who want to use their mobile as their primary device to shop from.
So can I just take another question that's come in from Michael Fox? Any countries not allowing the S1 squarish images? The only one is China, I believe, where the counterfeits are a real issue. So where counterfeits are a huge problem, the exact replication of the image is the only thing that customers will accept. But it's very much a China-specific problem. In every other market, the square images have been really, really successful. And people are quite happy that the square image is not an exact representation of the product. It looks a bit like it, but not exactly like it. But it's just more obvious what it is than the actual pack shot itself. So it's very much only China where those aren't the case. Every other market, every other product, the squarish images have been extremely successful.
Thanks for that, Sam. I would just further add too, as it relates to moving a market, which is exactly what this work is aiming to do, it takes a village, right? So I think that as more and more manufacturers work either within their own internal organizations with their own creative teams, or partner with someone like ItemMaster who can do it as a part of bringing your product content to market for e-commerce and mobile commerce, as Ali rightly points out. The more content that is available that adheres to the standard, the more it's distributed, the more retailers come to see the benefit, and the more the work is done, like around the A/B testing from a retailer-specific standpoint, and the more we talk about the results of that testing as a community, the more leverage we have to work to get it a consistent, uniform experience for shoppers, which is the end goal, right? So I think that it takes persistence, it takes partnership. Manufacturers need to be engaging retailers, and vendors in the community like ItemMaster, who sits squarely between both of you guys, also needs to be advocating on behalf of creating the best shopper experience for the end shopper.
Yeah, thanks, Courtney. That's very useful.
So can I add around the consistency piece that Ollie was talking to? The reason why we put all of this in the public domain on the Inclusive Design Toolkit was so that any brand can come up and get the same template. It's the same Photoshop file that you can use, and all the brands have to do is not mess with it. Put their image of the product together with the template, either in the portrait or the landscape, with or without the strips. And we made the decision tree so that there's not a brand-based decision about whether they have the strips or not. It's based on the aspect ratio of the product. It's based on whether you can or can't tell the type of product from the image. So we tried to make those rules. They were intentionally written so that you don't have every brand team interpreting the rules in their own way. And we put the rules available in the public domain for, again, that reason. So we've kind of done everything that we can to make it as easy as possible for brands to all follow the same rules. The challenge then comes, well, even when we've done all of that, brand teams will still go in and go, but I think I should have a color gradient on it, and we should use a different font. And we see this coming time and time again. But in a way, the industry is kind of self-policing, because then it takes another brand to go, actually, we've noticed this, and it's not on. And then I know Ollie's done a lot of publicizing on LinkedIn and things, where actually we can get brands to self-police. Anyone who's breaking the rules, just publicize the fact that they're breaking the rules, and then pretty soon they will fix it, because the alternative is the retailer will replace them with a pack shot. So in a sense, the category is kind of self-policing. What we just need is enough momentum to get enough people doing it first, to really get the shift happening. And then as a follow-up to that, we just need brands to self-police each other, who are saying, actually, so you're not following that slide 31 of that Cambridge guidelines there, you need to fix it. And that's why we made this presentation, so that every single micro bit of the image is pinned down, that if anybody can say, that's not on, you find a slide in the presentation to match that, where you say, no, there was a red cross there, you're not allowed to do that.
So there's another question Michael's asked, is there any competing methods or strategies that are both incompatible with the Cambridge work and has some level of broad adoption? So Michael, great question. We've seen Coke do some work where they're breaking the sides of the pack. They've got it live. If you type Schweppes into Ocado, they've only got it live on one retailer in one market. Fundamentally, if you break the sides of the pack and the brand comes out the sides of the pack, it looks kind of weird. So, and also we know that Google Shopping will definitely reject that image, because we've deliberately made sure that we only put technical text off pack. So stuff that's a typical search term like shampoo, conditioner, mousse, hairspray, antiperspirant. Generic stuff we know is a real top search keyword in Google that can be verified by Google, and GS1 is, hey, this is in the retailer's taxonomy, and it's not kind of bodifying shampoo and nonsense like that. So we have been very strict and showed restraint in terms of off-pack text, and obviously size is technical. Everybody knows size is technical. I think doing something like breaking the sides of the pack, which Coke have done, we strongly disagree with that route. We know Google has rejected that route, will reject that route, and will continue to reject that route, because there's no ways the Google algorithm can look at that and discern what is anything, because it's not a pack anymore. It's suddenly become a banner. We're not designing banners here, guys. We are designing something that is a good substitute for front of pack, which is simplified, cleaner, and easier for the shopper to see what's going on. That's why we advocate on tall stuff, medium zoom. If you've got a recognizable bottle such as Coke, my advice would be to show your whole bottle because everyone recognizes the Coke shape. And I'm basically watching to see how long they persist, because I don't think they're going to be able to scale with the work that they're doing beyond the one retailer in the UK.
Can I add some more details to that on multi-packs? So to start with, multi-packs are kind of going in a different direction to the hero images. People seem to think that, like the Coke cans multi-pack, where they draw the image out, and the Magnum one, and then people looked at the strips, like for the shampoos, and thought, oh, these are all completely incompatible. It's like Coke versus Unilever, or the idea that these Andrex ones were different to the Unilever approach. Hopefully, we've now consolidated the slide deck and the decision tree and that sort of thing, and with the multi-packs one as well on the slides that I presented, that you can actually see that all of these ones are part of the same approach. So the multi-packs, you can pull items out of the pack, you can show them either unwrapped or wrapped, you can show full square images. So there's almost a whole set of images that are compatible with each other that cover across multi-packs and individual packs. Now, the only one where multi-packs get a slight additional change that's slightly unresolved at the moment is respect to 3D views. Because if you take something like a 24-pack can of Coke in a crate, then the 3D view does kind of help you get across the fact that there's 24 cans in this pack. Whereas for a single pack can, for the single can, the 3D view is not as beneficial. So it's slightly in progress as to what degree of 3/4 or 3D views are going to be allowed with multi-packs. That's a work in progress. And it's, again, a work in progress with respect to pulling items out of the pack, and especially integrating the quantity of the item together with the pulled out item. But they're very much resolvable problems. We do see that there is one standard that will be applied across multi-pack and individual packs. And, there's just some minor details, slightly bits around the edges, where we're trying to get a negotiated agreement on some of the small minor details.
Cool. There's still a bit of time for other questions if people have. I'd be happy to answer them. So one of the things I will be doing to help you guys, we'll send around a spreadsheet of where hero images are live. They're live, like I mentioned earlier, across more than 50 retailers in 30 markets around the world. These are the Cambridge GS1 endorsed standard hero images that we've developed together. And you'll be able to see that the retailer adoption is accelerating. So Europe this week accepted, and a couple of other retailers that haven't gone live accepted, which all I'd say is watch LinkedIn, watch my posts, and you'll see as soon as they go live and I'm able to talk about them publicly, you'll see them be added. But every 2 weeks, we at least get one more retailer live. So we're making steady, strong progress to this becoming the industry standard. And Sam and I are meeting with GS1 every 2 weeks and progressing the conversation. And many of the categories that obviously Unilever are working in, we're close to those categories are a GS1 standard. So pretty much laundry signed off, certainly in the UK, as we're using the number of washes lozenge. Hair care in the UK is pretty much there as well. So there have been some quick wins. And we think the US is ready. We think the US customer or shopper is very focused on their mobile and wants to shop on their mobile, and now has a bigger screen, 5.5-inch mobile, and we'd like to help you make it happen with us.
So I'll take a few more of the questions that have just come in. So Michael Fox has asked about mixed packs. They are indeed more challenging. If you look at the Magnum minis, you'll see the best example of a mixed pack showcase where they've pulled out 3 different kinds of the ice cream that are inside off pack. There is a real challenge with gift packs when you've got like a shampoo and a conditioner and something else in a mixed pack, and they are certainly a challenge. But variety packs like the Magnum minis, and Walker's Crisps and these sort of things, we are definitely making progress on those. And when we publish the full standards for multi-packs probably in a couple of weeks' time on the Inclusive Design Toolkit, there will be every line item has got every route has got a mixed pack, variety pack implementation, and what we call a homogeneous pack implementation, where every item in it is the same. So that's definitely, yes, it's a work in progress. The other questions come up: how do you determine the information in a product, and how do you rearrange it? So in terms of determining what you should display, it's the 4 things that Ollie put in the presentation: brand, type of product, variant, and size. Generally speaking, when first creating these images, everyone goes, 1 quart of added moisturizer, that's the most important thing that we need to showcase. And then somebody else in the room from the brand goes, anti-aging, that's the most important thing that we need to showcase. And every time we come back to, no, get the 4 basics across first. And when you design the image at 16, we did this test with Unilever, we say, display the image at actual size on a wall. So 23 millimeters or about an inch, to say maybe it's a tablet, somewhere between a mobile, about an inch size, say, stand from it that's a meter away. Can you tell brand, type of font, type of product, variant, and size from that image when you're meters away? That was the test that we did that means you're roughly similar to a mobile device, but you can do that test live with the design agency, with the brand team, there and then in the meeting. And as soon as you do that test, you realize actually the anti-aging and #1 moisturizer and all the rest of it, there just isn't space for any of it, to be brutally honest. You've got to try as hard as you can to get those 4 bits across, and pretty much there's no space left for anything else anyway. So all of a sudden, all those conversations go away. In terms of how do you get the graphic resources to do the recreations, they are typically design agency produced. Some of the design agencies are more expensive than others, depending on how much creative thinking you're looking for them to do and how much it's more just handle turning. Now, I know when it comes to just turning the handle on the images and saying, no, we know exactly what we want to do, we just want to crank these images out and get them live as quickly as we possibly can, adding a few key details into the strip and zooming the product a little bit. And there are agencies that are starting to look at this as being their unique selling point. They say, well, we will turn the handle for you for very low cost. I don't know if ItemMaster want to chip in on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just to reiterate to the audience that because of the images that we are already capturing through our brand activation process, we have the raw assets that are necessary in then combining them with the template to be able to create mobile hero-ready images automatically as a part of brand activation. So if it's something that you would like for items that are already within the platform, we can go back and create them, or as you engage with us perhaps for the first time, we can add it as a part of, it's just a simple select box. You would like mobile-ready hero images, and we can make that happen for you.
Courtney, if I'm right, you've already started work with a couple of people, a couple of customers on that.
Yes, that is correct. Yep.
Cool. Excellent.
And with that, you guys, Sam and Ollie, cannot thank you enough for joining us late in the day on Friday across the pond.
Been fun.
Everyone staying on the line. And just a reminder, we will send out a link to download the full presentation along with the recording so you can get the voiceover to accompany the slides here early next week. And with that, we'll let you go. Thanks again.
Thanks, everyone. Nice to have you on the call. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, everyone. Bye now.